But without further ado, I want to bring him in, Mr. Ken W. Good. Welcome to the show, by the way. How you doing?
Hi, thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, you're frozen there, Ken. I don't know if that's pun intended, but there we go. There we go. We'll put you back up there again. There you go. Now you're not frozen. Come to the light, Ken. All right.
Well,
Yeah, yeah.
I wasn't frozen on my end. I don't know what the issue was on y'all's, but
Yeah.
hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your work. Obviously, you're a great representative of the law there in the great state of Texas. How did you get into this line of work, sir? Let's start off there.
Okay, so I've been practicing law for over 30 years, probably close to 35 years.
Okay.
I started out representing doctors in hospitals when they got sued. So, I mean, I was on court TV early in my career. I argued my first case at the Supreme Court of Texas as a 4-year attorney.
Oh, wow.
Which is very interesting because I met my client there the day before, and he's like, "You're not arguing my case tomorrow. You're too young to be arguing my case." And I'm like, "You're screwed because I'm the only one prepared to argue your case." And so we went, we argued it, and then afterwards they had a reception, and some of the staff attorneys came up and said, "You had the best argument." My client was like, "You paid them to say that." So I've always had an interest in the legal issues on cases, and that's kind of what I was on our medical malpractice stuff. But then I kind of developed this practice where, a bondsman got in trouble and he had a whole bunch of cases. And so I got them resolved for him, and then just word of mouth spread. And so since then, I've developed this practice where I represent bondsmen across the state. I represent insurance companies. I represent bondsmen at regulatory agencies in Texas. And then I write articles across the country on the bail issues because we started seeing these issues arise in federal courts. And I went to the hearings and I was not pleased and didn't agree with the decisions the judges were making. And one particular judge in Harris County has now been reversed 7, 8, or 9 times or more on her rulings on these issues. And that was a case that was cited across the country at one point. And ultimately, the Fifth Circuit said it should have never been even filed in federal court.
Oh, wow.
And so I finally came to the conclusion that if we were not expressing our side of the issue, if we weren't telling our story, nobody would be.
Can I ask you? Can I ask you a question? It just popped in my head, and with me, if I don't ask it when I hear it, I'll forget all about it.
Sure.
How do you explain? Not you personally, but how does the law system explain the discrepancy between judges? I mean, in my mind, we're dealing with law. We're dealing with laws that are written. How do we always get one judge says, "Oh, no, you can't. No, you can't do that," and then another judge goes, "Yeah, you can." And it's like, isn't this all? I don't understand how we've gotten to a point where we have such discrepancy in judges. I think
part of that arose when when Obama was president. We started politics has always been involved in the legal, criminal justice system, but it is now currently probably more involved in the criminal justice system than it has ever been. The issue that you're pointing out is probably the biggest issue, where judges in certain areas decide, hey, if we dismiss cases for lack of probable cause, the state doesn't have a remedy for that. So why don't we just clean out some of our dockets by declaring they don't have probable cause? And then you got other judges saying, well, you can't do that. They have probable cause. They have probable cause. And then like on the issue of bail, I've had a chief deputy for a sheriff's office tell me, I went to the courtroom, because I didn't want this person released, and I met with the judge afterwards, and the judge looked at me and said, my party wants them out of jail. So I'm going to follow the party, not.
Why do they want them out of jail? I mean, is it to make room for other, hard type of crime, or?
No. If you look at the history of this, you will see right before each national election, we've had, crises in the criminal justice system where we've had protests, and where one side of the political spectrum has said, this minority group, you are being taken advantage of and you are being mistreated by the criminal justice system. And so you need to come out and you need to get mad and you need to vote in larger numbers for us. And it worked for a while. But the problem is, after the election, it went back to business as usual. And then their supporters noticed that. And as a result, now we're electing what I would call the true believers, which are just the people that are sucked in by this rhetoric and are overlooking public safety and applying politics. And so now you didn't see the protest after, right before Trump's last Trump 2's election, because it got to the point where it wasn't working. But you wait, in the next month, you're going to see more of that, because they're going to go back to that method. They think they have an opening with ICE. And so all the way to the run up to the November elections this year, you're going to see that, because they're hoping it will work this time using ICE.
That's interesting you brought that up, because, there's so much frustration coming through the Department of Justice right now with, Pam Bondi, and then, obviously Kash Patel, within the FBI. They're trying to keep everything within the law, on a federal scale. But now, you're battling with, state laws there in Minnesota, and they feel that, they're out of jurisdiction. As somebody that has practiced law like yourself, okay, are they out of jurisdiction? Let's just get at that out of the way.
It's interesting because, I live in Texas, and in Texas, we lived under, Biden, where he wouldn't enforce immigration laws. And so Texas stepped up and said, if you're not going to enforce them, we're going to enforce them. And they spent billions of dollars. And what happened was Biden kept suing them and saying, you're stepping into my jurisdiction, and this is my area, not yours. And so you can't do it. And he won some cases. But then at the end of his term, he started losing some cases to Texas. And now we're kind of seeing that completely reversed. Now we've got the federal government seeking to enforce something that has been held, that is its responsibility. And now we have the opposite side, the states going, oh, you shouldn't be doing that. Oh, that's so cruel. And oh, you're doing, and you should leave. And it's just politics.
I don't understand why they're flipping now, because, like you mentioned, Obama.
It's an election issue. They've identified that as a winning election issue. That's all it is. Obama, they're not doing anything now that Obama didn't done. Holman
had done that,
awards from Obama.
I know.
And now he's being criticized for doing the very thing he did under Obama.
Because it has a Trump label on it. Is that more or less?
And they've identified that as the most winning issue for the next election cycle.
Yeah, I hear you. So, it's just it's mind blowing because of this entire TDS, and that's what it boils down to. They know that Trump is more or less doing stuff, within the law, and they can't. They can't do nothing about it. Yeah.
They have to attack Trump's intent, because if the public was to conclude that Trump is only looking after the best interests of the country, then they would never win an election again with Trump. But they have to say everything he's doing is with an ill intent, that he's wanting to harm. And I just disagree with that. And I think the TDS, like you've mentioned, is a major problem. If it's being advocated by Trump, then people are going to oppose it. And what the public doesn't realize is Trump is having incredible success with his policies, and they're working. Even in Minneapolis, where they're saying how terrible the crime is coming down and coming down quickly. And there's articles out there going, why is crime mysterious? Why is the murder rate mysteriously coming down? It's because we are picking up vicious, violent, illegal aliens who are in this country, and we're taking them out of this country. Shock of all shocks, that when we remove violent criminals off the streets, crime would go down. Only in this crazy world we live in right now, 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2, it equals 14.
I think a lot of it, what's going on right now, is building up to the, SAVE Act. They want to pass that SAVE Act, and President Trump has made that perfectly clear, in the last coming of weeks. And because it goes into the voter ID, right? And that's why they're going crazy right now with ICE presence in Minnesota, and then obviously going into the other states. I'm in the Atlanta area, Ken. So we are now, experiencing not as heavy as Minnesota, but a little bit within that area of Minnesota.
Well, I'm in the state of Washington, and they're starting to lose their mind here. Because we're a democratically run state. Yeah.
Well, but isn't the lesson from the last 6 months is all of these programs on the left, and where Minneapolis and Minnesota has so much fraud that's been uncovered. I mean, whatever level of fraud you have in Minnesota, imagine what it would be in California.
Sure.
Or imagine what it is. Multiply it by 100. Yeah. I mean, you've already got programs where they've passed bonds for billions of dollars to address the homeless issue that the federal courts are already doing audits on, and everybody's running from it. It's not my fault. It's not my fault. It's not my fault.
Well, check this out, Ken. I got a clip here from Caroline Leavitt, the press secretary, basically weighing in some of that, past the SAVE Act here. Guys, check this out.
Referring to.
But to be clear, he does believe the state should oversee elections.
The president believes in the United States Constitution. However, he believes there has obviously been a lot of fraud and irregularities that have taken place in American elections. And again, voter ID is a highly popular and common sense policy that the president wants to pursue, and he wants to pass legislation to make that happen for all states across the country.
And Kelly, just to follow up on
in third world countries, you have to prove that you're a citizen to vote. Only in the United States is it's a dirty word to say that you have to prove that you are eligible to vote before you can vote.
That doesn't make any sense.
How did we turn it upside down like that?
That doesn't make any sense.
I don't understand this. Like you said, you go to third world countries, and if you don't obey their law, you're lucky to have your life by the end of the day. Most likely you'd be thrown in jail. Right here, oh no, it's just a slap on the wrist. Our judicial system, I'm sorry, Ken. I know you're part of that, but it sucks.
I agree.
It's broken in this nation.
Well,
our justice system is not there. How do we fix it, Ken? How do we fix it?
I do agree with you that there are problems with our criminal justice system, but I will say I have a lot of faith in the criminal justice system. The problem is, with this soft on crime policies, that's what's undermining our criminal justice system. When you have DAs in our urban areas that decide they're no longer going to prosecute crimes, and that the real victim is not the, victim of the crime, but it's the defendants in the courtroom. When they decide that, and, DA Gascon from LA County, his press secretary or press person said that when the DA is saying the real victim is the defendant and the defendant's attorney is in the courtroom, who's arguing for the person who had the crime committed against them? Nobody. That's what's wrong. That's what's wrong. You've got Prop 47 that passed in California where we changed certain felonies to misdemeanors, including theft under $950. And then you had DA say, we're no longer going to prosecute it. And we've seen what happens when you do that.
Yeah.
Shoplifting goes way up. Stores have to start closing because they can't sustain $25,000 of shoplifting a day. And then crime in the area goes up. And then you have commercial property values just go through the basement.
And President Trump made an announcement on his accounts. What was it? The other day, actually, that we must pass this act. We must pass it. If we don't pass it, most likely the Republicans are going to lose the House. Okay, and you're never going to have bills.
Well, but the problem
properly.
is
it's not about that, Ken. If I may, it's not about that. You'll never have bills passed. You'll never have them passed.
How did Trump ever win with all of the fraud and with these funds just being shoveled to Democrat groups, through, we're just doing we're just putting money into these NGOs. I mean, how did Trump win? How did any Republican ever win an election with those schemes going on like we are? I mean, the good news is, and, I do have hope for our criminal justice system. And the one reason why I do is what's going on right now is not sustainable. I mean, these soft on crime DAs have a shelf life of 1 or 2 elections. So far, they're not lasting further than 2 elections, and the public has enough of them. And then when they get replaced, they get generally replaced with a law and order DA. And that's what we need. We need more law and order DAs. We need both parties. If you're or if you're soft on crime, you need to lose the next national election so that your party will moderate and go back to what both parties historically have been, and that is law and order parties.
Yeah, but how do we combat the fraud? I mean, there's tons of fraud out there. I mean, look at stuff through like Black Lives Matter. Look at these anti-ICE movements and organizations. I mean, that's just to say, say a small amount of it. For an example, like how do we combat that? I mean, people have brought the theory in, we should have the president sign an executive order to reestablish mental institutions. Does that work? Will it solve that? That's not going to solve it. No.
That's not going to solve our problem, because the reason why we got rid of our mental institutions, the network of them, years and years and many years ago, and the reason why our jails and our prisons are our largest mental health facilities today is because there's no natural constituency to support a network of mental health facilities. Whenever there was a budget crunch in the counties or the states, those were the first to have their budget cut, and that's the reason why they're gone now. They got to where they weren't even didn't have enough operating money to provide food. We had examples of people starving to death in mental health facilities, and you had class action lawsuits filed across the country, and that's what drove them out of business long before Reagan. And so, I mean, it's a great idea, but there's no constituency to argue for funding them. And so it's just a problem that's going to repeat itself until we figure out how to address this. The problem with what we're doing now with this criminal justice reform is we're using mental health as a King's X. We don't want them in the criminal justice system anymore. So we just King's X, dismiss their criminal case and release them. And there's no treatment, nothing. And so that's just a revolving door. They get arrested, they get in jail, they get on their meds, they get controllable, they get released, they get off their meds, they get uncontrollable, and then they get arrested again. And so we've got to get rid of the revolving door. And what we're currently doing with the soft on crime policies is not working, especially since we've moved all the mental health treatment and stuff to our prisons and jails.
Well, the bondsmen are making a plenty amount of money with that, right? Like they're bonding their clients out. They're going to the next client. They're bonding them out. They're making a fortune right now.
Look, that's not the right measure. The right measure of
it's true, is it not? I mean,
look, there's several different types of release mechanisms that are used when someone's held. The reason why the bail industry has been around for 200 years is because it works. It works not just well. It works hundreds of times better than any other release mechanism. And let me give you an example. If you have 1,000 people required to show up for court in a week, the private bail industry has a failure to appear rate of less than 10%. Cash, 20 to 30% failure to appear rate. Any type of simple release where we're just releasing you on your promise, whether it's a personal bond, whether it's a release on no bond, or California released on zero bail, has a 60 to 80% failure to appear rate. That's the number that nobody wants to talk about. When you have high failure to appear rates, that creates huge backlogs, and huge backlogs puts pressure on courts to dismiss cases, because that's the only way they can keep the system from collapsing. And when you dismiss cases, criminals see that as a green light to commit more crime.
Yeah.
Shock.
Yeah.
It is a shock, but
this thing about fraud that you brought up, Michael, I think, you say, well, what are we going to do about the fraud? The thing that bugs me about the fraud is we're asking the people that are deeply involved in the fraud to do something about the fraud. They're not going to do it. I mean, we can have
I would have never dreamed that in Minnesota, we're setting up programs to help the poor for daycares. And we're setting up vacant offices that never had a kid in them, and they're making money hand over fist. I mean, I would have never dreamed that something that we as a society thinks is a good idea would turn into what it turned into in Minnesota. And do you think Minnesota is all on its own? It's only done that there? No, it's everywhere.
It's all across the nation.
This is what I think about the rot of our judicial system. And I hate to use those words because it's absolutely true. I mean, I'll play you two clips here. This is one with Black Lives Matter on how they're overseeing a case right here. And it's just like literally, I see the body language coming right from the judge. And I'm like, are you serious? Seriously? Check this out.
A Detroit judge finds herself on the wrong side of the bench tonight. The feds have charged 4 people in a corruption scheme, including the judge, her father, and a guardian. They're accused of stealing hundreds of thousands of dollars from people at risk and unable to care for themselves.
Just stunning. 7 investigator Heather Catallo is here now after exposing allegations of corruption for over a decade in Michigan's guardianship system. And now this.
This is a huge federal probe. Families have complained for a long time that the guardianship system makes it far too easy for people with power to take money from the vulnerable. And that's exactly what the feds are alleging this judge and her co-defendants did.
Andrea Bradley Baskin, P70474, here on behalf of Miss Nancy Williams.
A lawyer turned judge who once defended a local guardian in court is now her co-defendant in a federal corruption case.
She looks forward to this, her name being cleared in these charges.
Before Andrea Bradley Baskin became a 36th district court judge, Bradley Baskin and her father, attorney Avery Bradley, often represented guardian Nancy Williams. Williams' guardianship agency, Guardian and Associates, was appointed to be the fiduciary for more than 1,000 cases in the Wayne County Probate Court. When a probate judge declares you legally incapacitated, a guardian can have total control over your medical and financial decisions.
Oh, my God. Is that true?
Yeah, I've been through this for my sister. I had her declared incompetent, and I was her guardian at the end of her life.
Yeah.
And so, but this doesn't have anything to do with the bail system, but this is absolutely true. I mean, I at one point in time, I had a control over my sister's accounts that had like $750,000 in them. And so, I mean, you have to account for that money.
I mean, look at this money laundering. It's all over the place. Yeah.
Nobody's checking you. You don't have to approve any money. I mean, when my sister died, I accounted for every penny that was in those accounts, and they still had $550,000 in those accounts. And I'm like, you want to see what I spent it on? I didn't spend a dime on anything other than my sister. And so, yeah, you have that much control, and it's scary.
It is scary. It is scary. And this is, I mean, look at this. Deposits, purchases, fraud of check. Yeah. I mean, and you heard the judge was in on it too, as well.
Look, this brings back nightmares to me because, I was dealing with an estranged family. It was my own family, but, I was the guardian for my sister at the end of her life. And when she died, and she had 2 daughters. And so I'm looking at, I've got $550,000 still sitting in an account for her 2 daughters. That wasn't enough money for them. They threatened to sue me because they wanted more money than that. And I'm like, well, I'm sorry, your mom didn't die sooner. We were spending money every month on her. And they were like, well, you didn't do this, you didn't do that. I'm like, well, then sue me because, it's not whether I was looking after someone you weren't, and there's a big long story there,
but this is what I'm talking about. This is a leftist BLM social justice warrior Detroit judge indicted on fraud scheme, embezzling from elderly people. I mean, is she going to be put in jail? Probably not. I don't know. If she is, she's probably going to get out within that nice little bond system that we have in America.
Well, look, here's the problem we have right now. There are people. Look at Somalia. Let's use that as the example. When they started identifying that there were issues there, what was the response of the Somali community? You're racist for even raising questions. Can you imagine if I came on the show and I said, this is my opinion and I'm white, and so if you question me, you're racist? I mean, just because I have a difference of an opinion on you, I can't express it because of your heritage, your color of your skin. I mean, to me, what that says is we don't have a response to your argument. So we're going to just throw out a verbal bomb and try to cut off conversation. And we've got to get past that. I mean, if you don't agree with me, fine. I'll be happy to debate with you. But don't call me racist because I have an opinion that's different than yours. That just means you can't respond to my argument.
That's the problem of the basic conversation breakdown, right? No one can conversate with one another on a healthy note. Everything is with that label. Whether you're a racist, or you're a homophobe, or you're this and that.
Well, I'm at the point where I'm like, if you're going to throw that stuff out, you have stuff to hide. Because you don't want to talk. You don't want to talk about the merits, so you're hiding it, and you're hiding it behind that inflammatory language to try to cut off the debate. Don't listen to Kim because he's a racist. No, what are you hiding because you can't talk about the issue?
Exactly. That's how I feel. They don't want to talk about it because I mean they're all smiles. Oh yeah, until you say, well, but I don't agree with you. It's like you're evil. Now all of a sudden you're the devil. It's like, well, I don't know. I don't know when it's come to where it's such a bad thing to have your own opinion of something.
Well, look at the Attorney General of Minnesota, where he met with these groups and he was meeting with them about why their funding was cut off from these programs because the agency identified fraud. And so they give him contributions and suddenly he's helping them get turned back on. And he doesn't see a problem with that. I mean, I would say 10 years ago, that would have required him to resign. He would have resigned in disgrace just from that. But now we live in this time where not only is he not going to resign, I mean, they're going to double down and accuse everybody else that they should be a step away. They should be defeated in the next election because they dare to question them.
Ken, I want to set the tone a little bit. I'm not against all bondsmen. I think, I'm saying that on a serious note. I believe some of you guys are, doing the right things within the law, but, there are corrupted bondsmen out there that will just take anything, to keep more or less the light on in the office, so to speak. And, some of these criminals that they're bonding out of prison and jail are repeat offenders. Like, how do they still? I understand we live through a constitutional republic of America, but like, there should be an issue with that.
Well, okay, so the bail industry's job is to get people to go to court, and the more quickly we get them to go to court, then we can get their case resolved. And if they're found guilty, they can go to jail. If they're found innocent, they can go free. So the measure should be, I mean, if a bondsman has more than a 10% failure to appear rate, he's going to go out of business because he can't afford the forfeiture. So, I mean, okay, I agree. There are bad apples in every industry. The law, I mean, probably, radio show hosts, probably there's bad apples. There's bad apples in podcasts. There's bad apples everywhere.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that, look, people don't like bail bondsmen, but there's a reason why they've been around 200 years. It's because they do one thing and they do it very, very well. They get people to go to court. If you don't want people to go to court, then you don't need bondsmen. But if you don't need people to go to court, you're not going to be able to get cases resolved. You can't hold everybody in jail until their case is resolved. The public is not going to support more crime like we've been living through the last 5 years. The public is not going to pay for holding everyone pre-trial until their case is resolved.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but I mean, this is part of like the progressive criminal policy here, the justice policies, right? We'll talk about.
But the progressives that started out attacking the bail industry because they're an easy target. That's low hanging fruit. That's how they got it. They started moving this criminal justice reform movement by attacking the bail. We don't need the bondsman. Everybody wants to go to court. Everybody wants to resolve their cases. Well, you know what? During COVID, we found out that was absolutely not true. Well, nobody will go to court if you don't make them.
Don't get me started with COVID. I just had a gentleman on yesterday, and we got into the entire hysteria of COVID, and I encourage you to check that out because, COVID's over with, more or less, but we're still feeling the alter effects of it. And my personal opinion, the behavior of what you're seeing in America is from the majority of that era.
The effects of what we've done on a generation of kids. I mean, we're going to be living with that for decades.
These children are scarred for life. I mean, literally.
Well, they're behind
through indoctrination, manipulation
they're going to college. They can't even read.
Yeah. Well, that's just the manipulation of the general educational system.
Yeah, but you know why
country.
I think that is because they discovered that if kids didn't graduate from high school, then their chances of going to prison increase substantially. So they've convinced in our urban cities to just, they're not smart. They didn't grasp the information, but give them a pass anyway, because it'll decrease their chances of going to prison. No, we're dumbing down the entire class. We're increasing the chances of the entire class of going to prison because we're just passing people along with good intentions, but it's it's killing our society.
Let me. Yeah, I don't want to touch on that too much. I want to talk more about the the criminal justice policies with an article that's coming off of your website. It was dated on August 19th. You go into the gun buybacks. Some of these politicians in big cities, which you believe that have gun buyback programs. Can you go into some of those programs? Of what
Harris County, Houston has had gun buyback programs where they're offering, just set up a day, set up tables, and so you bring a gun in, we'll buy it. And their goal is to, they think that this policy is to get guns from criminals and get them off the streets. The problem is when you do these buyback programs, I mean, they don't really they're not able to trace any of the guns they buy back to any crime that's been committed. And so you end up, it's a payoff. It's again a payoff system for their supporters for broken guns, for guns that are not in use. I mean, it doesn't end up being exactly anything like what they're proposing or they're telling the public it is intended to do.
It's amazing to me that people think a criminal is going to do something like that.
Yeah.
It's just like all these wanting to pass more gun laws and, do this and do that. Do they really think that's going to stop the criminal? The criminal don't care. He's going, sure, great, thank you.
Well, but you look at what are some of these other policies, soft on crime policies, where they don't want to hold people in jail. They just want to release them. And so their measurement of success is how many people have been released from jail pre-trial. It's not, okay, now has crime now gone up as a result? They don't look at that.
No,
they're only looking at, the jail population's down. Well, that's not a measure of success.
You're letting them out. That's why.
Would that violate the no cash bail policy at all, or no?
Well, so the no cash bail policy that President Trump addressed in executive order is, simple release. It's release on just your own promise instead of being released on a surety bond or a cash bond. But so when what Trump has done, he's looked at that and said, they have such a high failure to appear rate. And he's looked at the studies. I mean, he cited in his executive order a study from Yolo County in California where the DA kept his statistics during COVID. And he compared the release of two nonviolent offenders, one on a simple release and one released on a private surety bond. And the person that was simply released just on their promise, low violent offender or nonviolent offender, had a 200% greater chance of committing a new violent offense in the next 18 months.
Oh, wow.
And so if that's true,
so
why
these
would
were violent offenders
that?
then? Yeah.
No, they were nonviolent offenders.
They're not offenders. Oh, wow. Okay.
And then they have a 200% greater chance of committing a new violent offense. Why would you want to release anyone on simple release if you're increasing the risk that they're going to be in a worse position?
There's never no fear. There's never no fear that you're going to be held accountable for anything anymore. That's why the people.
Well, that's true. I agree. I think that's one of the biggest problems with the criminal justice reform movement, the bad bail reform movement, is they give up on accountability. I mean, in Houston, Texas, you'll have somebody fail to show up for court 17 times, and they just give him the same simple release 17 times. And I mean, what's the theory of, when you expect a different result, but you keep doing the same thing every time?
I'm looking at one of your bills in your state here, the HB 1522 bill that basically has the biggest impact of what we're kind of going into, more or less similar. And then you can go to the HB 1778 bill, which is it's a Texas penal code that creates continuous promotion of prosecution, right? If I had that correct.
Prostitution.
It's the prostitution. Okay, I had that backwards. I mean, I'm kind of familiar a little bit with Texas. I don't know all your penal codes, but
Texas has major bail reform that it just passed. It put before the voters on a constitutional amendment, and it was called SJR 5, and it passed by the voters, and so went into effect January 1. And that is that we have 8 offenses, or the Abbott 9 offenses that. Murder, capital murder, all the some aggravated offenses that if the DA files a motion, you can be detained pretrial.
Oh, wow.
If you meet certain evidentiary requirements, then you can be held. And we've already had several examples of Houston, Harris County judges granting such motions. And so Harris County is kind of the problem child in Texas, where Harris County disagrees with the legislature, and we're fighting over who controls bail policy, criminal justice policy. And so finally, judges in Houston, Texas, Harris County are following what the legislature is setting as policy.
Yeah, and I could see that prostitution being, at a high level because of obviously the state of Texas. There's constant human trafficking, coming through the border there. So that's a growing issue, and I'm glad that they're tackling that.
Well, they've been addressing the human trafficking stuff for several legislative sessions.
Yeah,
we had major bail reform in SB 6 4 years ago, and then we had another round of major bail reform this session with SB 9.
Yeah.
But Texas is going the opposite direction of these soft on crime states. They're strengthening the criminal justice system. They're limiting the use of these simple release mechanisms, and they're requiring accountability. So,
now, is your governor there? Is he handling that same issue with the human trafficking, with the prostitution? Because in the state of Florida, they were having problems. Ron DeSantis actually addressed this not too long ago with massage parlors as a channel of that. Are you guys seeing that same issue there in Texas with the massage parlors of the prostitution, especially South Florida? South Florida is.
I'm not aware of. I mean, that's not something I don't look for massage parlor news so it's not something.
Well, you know what I mean. It's linked towards.
The last time I was at
it's
a
linked
massage
towards.
parlor,
You know what I'm talking about, Ken. I mean, no pun intended, but no, it's. I'm not trying to trap you on words, but I mean that is linked towards some of that human trafficking.
I would not be surprised, but I know that the governor has been very conscious and concerned about immigration and violent offenses, and human trafficking has been a major issue in Texas that they've been focusing on at the legislature.
Well, that's good. I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad that, we have red states that are actually upholding the law and honoring the damn code, let alone blue states that don't even know where to start with it. Their crime is out of control. Their immigration's out of control. They're a petty crime, burglary, armed robbery. All that is out of control.
Hey, with a quick Google search, Texas is shutting down 6 major massage parlors, allegedly. That was in July of last year. Texas revoked dozens of massage parlor licenses linked to human trafficking. So it looks like this is an issue that's absolutely under the governor's radar.
That's why I brought that up, because it's not just affecting Florida. I'm sure it's going to affect Texas. I can't say so much here in Georgia because it's kind of like a more or less a blocked road, so to speak. There's not a lot of. I mean, we have an immigration problem in the state of Georgia, but nothing like Florida or Texas or anywhere near the Gulf states, for that matter, with that issue.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned this issue to me, because it's not something that I've even looked at, and so now it's on my radar and I'll look at it. We find that the bail industry is so closely intertwined with law enforcement and the court system. I mean, we're really a partner in the criminal justice system. I mean, we according to the latest stats from the Office of Court Administration, the private bail industry is responsible for 83% of all releases pretrial in Texas. So we're providing supervision, and we're making sure people get to courts in huge numbers in Texas.
Well, that's.
Do you think, Ken? Do you think people fear going to jail anymore, going to prison?
I don't think they do on misdemeanors, because there's really little chance they'll go to jail. They'll always dismiss the case. But the concern I have is that I think today's misdemeanors are becoming the training grounds for tomorrow's felonies. And once you start committing felonies really quick, you're going to be in jail, and you're going to be in jail for a while. And so I think I think what you're saying is true, that I don't think people fear going to jail like they should, because then by the time they commit the serious offense, they're going to learn very quickly that they're going to be in jail for a while. And our prisons are full of very, very dangerous people.
I see these videos of judges giving sentences out to these young people that have been caught in things, and they're all cocky, and he says, we find you guilty on such and such, and it's you're sentenced to 18 months in jail, and their jaws drop. Like 18 months? Are you what? You know, it's like the reality just slaps them.
But isn't that the result of listening to the wrong people? I mean,
Yes.
you know, look at, you know, we've been through this period where we feel safe, so we've been more forgiving on our criminal laws, and as a result, one of those is we are making it harder to prosecute 16-year-olds as an adult. And so, what do gangs do? They go recruit 16 years old or younger to commit. You know, you need somebody killed. Well, we're going to get one of these kids to do it that we've recruited because they've made it more difficult for them to be prosecuted. And so they don't, I mean, so there's an example of where the criminal element is taking advantage of our forgiveness, our soft on crime policies, and it's to the detriment of everybody involved.
Yeah, the soft on crime, that is just, you know, when I was growing up, I'm 72 years old, so I was growing up in the, you know, the 60s and that, and I had a fear of even going to the detention center. You know,
well, that's when we fear justice. They don't do that anymore.
We fear
they don't fear it.
Well, I'm catching up with you. I'm 65 and I'm just moving along. So I'll probably be caught up with you in a couple more years.
But we don't have no fear of any kind of you know.
No.
But it's just like you see it in these. I'm really bothered about what's going on with law.
Not just judges, but just law enforcement to begin with. I mean, you talk about ICE. Look at the agitators there in Minnesota. They're edging them on. They know that gentleman that unfortunately died from the agent there, that Alex Preddy guy. That guy was literally edging those agents to hurt him physically in earlier videos. This is the type of behavior because they know that agent can't physically hurt him without intent from the agitator placing harm on that agent. These agents know this. The agitators know this. These criminals, let me tell you something about these criminals that I've experienced a little bit so far. These criminals are your next level educated criminal. You know, they're not like yesterday's criminals where they'll fold under pressure. These are very smart. They're doing a lot of research. They're looking into the Constitution where they can get away with stuff through loopholes. That's a dangerous issue, a very, very dangerous issue.
I mean, we're getting to the point now where a simple traffic stop turns into a major thing because people just don't fear. They don't.
Well, you know, that's what pushed criminal justice reform in Texas in the opposite direction. It was from a traffic stop where a gentleman was stopped and there was a DPS officer and he had a warrant and he knew he had a warrant. And while the DPS officer was checking, he pulled out his rifle and shot and killed him. And that's what pushed Texas to enact criminal justice reform to strengthen the criminal justice system instead of to go down this road of soft on crime. I mean, when I was a kid, I grew up in a really small town. If I had a police officer following me, and he didn't even have to turn his lights, I'd pull over and say, "What did I do?" I mean, that's the mindset. We don't have that anymore. And we have groups being trained. Look, there's no accountability. You can get away with this. And so they're training them on what to do to agitate, what they can do. And then they're looking for these examples so that someone gets hurt and then they're going to make that the issue in the next national election. And they are. You can just guarantee it.
There's been some growing issues with tracking systems that they're looking into, you know, companies like Amazon with this, you know, with these.
Yeah, but the good news is there's some new polls out today saying that by and large, the public supports ICE, supports what they're doing.
Oh yeah,
and so, I mean, okay.
I'm seeing a slight trend on TikTok and that where people now are starting to show these videos and they're saying, you know, I was driving home yesterday and a cop was following me, and he hit his lights, he pulled me over.
Well, ICE announced today they're putting body cameras on all their officers in Minnesota so that they can combat this crap that they're showing.
That actually came out yesterday. Yeah, where President Trump actually made an announcement that, you know, he is going to, you know, do whatever by any means necessary, and that's good.
But
Absolutely.
what I wanted to say is these people are coming out with these videos and they're saying, so he told me to roll my window down, and I rolled my window down. He asked me for my ID and my driver's license and my insurance, and I handed it to him. And he says, "Yeah, you went a little bit quick through the stop sign. Oh, I'm sorry, officer. I didn't notice it." He goes, "Okay, well, here, I'm going to give you a warning." And I get a warning, and he thanks me and says, "Have a safe day," and he leaves. He goes, "It's so simple."
Shock.
Yeah, it's so simple. Why don't we do that? I don't. I am not gonna argue with a cop. I'm not gonna argue with law enforcement. My mom told me a long time ago when I was a kid. She goes, "If you get stopped by law enforcement, whether you're guilty or not, deal with it at the station."
I saw a black guy give advice to his son, and I thought, that's good advice for any son.
Yeah.
If an officer stops you, you answer his questions, yes sir, no sir, and you don't provoke anything. That's good advice for everyone.
Everybody.
Yeah, it is.
And it's good advice too, as if they're going, well, we're going to take you in. Well, then put your arms behind your back
that's
and
right.
deal with it at the station.
Mm-hmm.
Don't deal with that because that's
but people don't realize when you deal with it there, you're adding charges, resisting arrest. They have the right to arrest you. And so if you resist, you've just now got an additional charge.
Yeah. Don't make them bust your window. That's the worst thing you want to happen.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead, bust my window, drag me out. All right.
I'm more scared of my wife than the police. I'd be afraid if I told him to break the window, I'd have to answer to her.
Oh yeah.
Me too.
You told the police to do what? I was like, can I stay here tonight? I don't want to go home.
Oh, yeah.
Please put me in a holding cell.
Just put me in some cell somewhere, far enough from her for 24 hours.
Sense. It's just common sense. I mean, why all these other things are not common sense? But really what it is when you're high, when you're drunk, when you're mad, we don't make good decisions.
Your emotions get the best of you. Absolutely. Yeah.
And then when we have mental issues, we make terrible decisions.
Well, that's on another scale. We have to try to clean that up a little bit. Yeah.
I saw a thing in Florida that I was really DeSantis. He says that he passed this thing or an ordinance that anytime that there's some kind of law enforcement thing going on, ICE or whatever, that there is a 20-foot parameter. That if you violate that 20-foot parameter, you're going to jail. Absolutely. I mean, he just said it. And so if you want to protest, you go ahead, but don't violate that 20-foot
I like
parameter.
that. I like that. Too. It's a buffer zone. It gives them the room to do their job. Yeah. And the reality is they just don't want them to do their job. I mean, the whole harassment thing is to try to run them out of Minnesota. But I think there's so much right now in Minnesota that's a distraction. All of this is a distraction from the fraud. Because otherwise the Democrats have lost, and so they have to have a distraction.
That fraud is coming out there. I mean, with the Clintons, with Barack now, I just seen a couple hours ago. I mean, hey, I'm all for it. That's why we have a justice system in America. I'm sorry. No one is above the law. I don't care if you're a politician or a regular civilian, right? You have to obey the law, whether you like it or not.
And if people are not going to get arrested in that, what good is anything?
Well, and that's a good point because, I think that there's a small group of people that are committing most of the crimes, 60% or more. And, you can even think of it as the crime city living within the bigger city. Absolutely. Well, there's a buffer zone between the two. And those people that live in the gray area are watching. They're watching if there's consequences, if there's accountability for the crime city, then they're going, oh, I'm a law and order guy today. But if there's no consequences and there's no accountability, then they're going, oh, I'm going to live in the crime city today. Yeah. So the decision on enforcing the law and holding people accountable, they affect the gray area more than any other thing. And we have to teach law and order. We have to give people the incentive to be law and order citizens.
That's a good send-off message, Ken. I appreciate that. I also appreciate you for coming on, sharing some of what you do and what you're fighting for in the great state of Texas. And I think other states should look at states like Texas, the great state of Florida with DeSantis. And other states, leading the charge with this because again, we can't become a country that just ignores crime. We can't be a country that ignores immigration crime. Mm-hmm. We have to, because what's going to happen is we're going to join that growing list of failed empires.
Yeah.
And you don't want that. You don't want people running in the streets committing, mass murder and all that. You don't want that. You want a safe community. You want a safe country,
We don't
But
want to live in
isn't the lesson from the last year from Trump is we know what to do about immigration. We know how to control it. And it's not we need a new law. We need somebody just to impose the law that we have.
Do it.
And same thing on crime. We know how to control crime.
Well, look what they did.
People that will do it.
Yeah, look what they did with alligator Alcatraz down in Florida there in the Everglades. They threw a hissy fit about, that's inhumane. That's inhumane. You have children sleeping on the floor. You have this and that. Well, I'm sorry. I'm sorry if it may have been like that, but I mean, to an extent, and maybe this is mean by saying it, but I'm being honest. Those parents did it to themselves with their children.
Exactly.
They could have done the right thing by crossing the border and showing proper identification. I mean, let me tell you something real quick before we kind of close out with you, Ken. Okay, and maybe I can get an answer from you because I'm really, really stern to the bridges on this one topic here. We have to show identification for just about everything in the world, whether it's the United States or we're traveling internationally in airports. If I'm in France, I have to show my ID and passport. If I'm in Eastern Europe or anywhere in the country, I have to show my passport and driver's license or some form of ID.
You have to show your ID to go into any federal building.
Exactly. How hard is that to comprehend on a scale with an immigration? I'm sorry. If you don't have proper identification, something to prove who the hell you are, you can't come into our country.
But
I'm sorry.
The answer in focus groups opposing that has created an issue that gives one party a greater chance of winning by saying they're trying to hurt you by making you do this. I mean, when that no longer is a successful issue for that party, you will no longer hear about it. When both parties become law and order again, you will no longer hear this crap about soft on crime.
Yeah, the new nickname for ICE, they're calling them the radical bondsmen of America. They're going against the Constitution. Oh, you're gonna love this, right? They're going against our Constitution, and these are unprofessional law enforcement agents.
Wait. So the Constitution says we can have illegal aliens, and I'm sorry, that's not politically correct, but illegal aliens come into our country, and then who actually gets to vote? Well, we're going to let everybody vote. So isn't the real plan is to get as many people to come in the country so that the party that's scheduled to lose can win? Isn't that really what we're talking about? I mean, it doesn't have any, and because when that changes and people coming in will then support the other party, you will see a 180-degree turn. I mean, when we suddenly discover that when you flood one state with illegal aliens and suddenly they have bigger representation in the House of Representatives, then you know exactly what's going on.
I like what the people were saying. What Trump needs to do is tell all illegal aliens that he will give them citizenship automatically if they will vow to vote Republican. He goes, if he does that, watch the Democrats want him out of the country.
Yeah. I mean, that's the point. It's too political. We got to get politics out of immigration and out of criminal justice reform.
We need our three branches of government back and doing what they do: executive, legislative, and judiciary.
We need to get rid of the administrative state. We need to get rid of the administrative state completely.
Yeah.
Ken, if you'd like to plug any information here before we, depart with you, I'll leave you with a couple minutes here if you'd like, sir. Go ahead.
Sure. If people want more information about me or our group, you can go to our website, pbtx.com. We have a blog where we highlight important criminal justice stories, but we also have our own podcast. There's a link on the menu, or you can just go directly to thebailpost.com. All we talk about are criminal justice issues, what works, what doesn't work. And you're going to be surprised by what doesn't work, because when the other side is arguing we need to defund the police to make us safer, there's actually studies from universities that say you want the murder rate go up, decrease funding to the police. So go to the Bail Post and find out the real truth about criminal justice reform.
Appreciate you. Thank you for coming on, Ken.
Thanks, Ken.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Wow. What a gentleman.